Peru, South America, the Andes Mountains. 9,000 feet above sea level, in an area the Inca people once called the Sacred Valley, lie the ruins of the ancient city of Ollantaytambo. Once serving as both a temple and a fortress, mainstream historians claim Ollantaytambo was built around 1440 AD by the Inca Emperor Pachacuti. But some scholars believe Ollantaytambo was built upon the ruins of a far older city, one whose origins remain unknown.
The gate behind me is called the Gateway of the Gods, and it was built several thousand years before the Inca arrived here. It was built by a culture we call the Uranpacha. We give them that name because we have no idea who they were, where they came from, or where they went. It's clearly evident that the earliest parts of Ollantaytambo dates to at least 12,000 years old, if not older.
From the research I have been able to determine, this was built by the Arak civilization. The Arak people are as ancient as what would be the equivalent to Adam or the first humans.
But how could the earliest humans on Earth have produced such astonishing stonework? With massive interlocking blocks precisely fitted together? Or have constructed aqueducts and irrigation systems that still function today? Or have moved and set colossal stones of granite, each weighing more than 50 tons?
Ollantaytambo is a mountain fortress. It's renowned specifically for the incredible sized blocks that were used in its construction, most particularly those that are found on its highest level and the highest point on this mountain. There are 6 of these positioned in a line, and they were transported from another mountain where the source is, across a plain, across a river, and then up the mountain. And of course, the biggest mystery is how the hell were they not only able to cut these things, but to move them up this mountain.
In modern day, if we were going to move a 50-ton boulder, we would have to assemble a special transportation unit consisting of steel girders, several axles, hydraulic jacks. Moving it up the hill, we'd probably have to change the face of the hill, build a road, maybe anchor it using some kind of cable and pulley system, several different options, none of which would be available to the people who lived way back then.
These 6 giant slabs of red granite have stood here for thousands of years because of the beautiful engineering of the ancients. If there is a major earthquake, these shims can ride up and down, absorbing the shock of the earthquake, and that keeps the giant slabs in place. The ability to fit perfectly fitting stones of several tons in weight together so that a single human hair can't fit in between them is not a question of sweat or man hours. It's a question of technology.
Mainstream archaeologists claim the dense hard granite was cut and shaped by means of stone or bronze tools. But evidence of such tools has never been found at the site. And stranger still is the means by which the mammoth rocks are bonded into place, as if fused together by an unknown form of energy.
It's almost as if 2 stones were leaned together and they infused it with some type of high radiation beam or a laser that would then fuse the rocks together. They could then stack a 3rd rock and create another fused area. There is no explanation for how they had the ability to create such a high heat source and fuse these rocks in such an intricate fashion.
Caral has only been excavated for possibly the last 20 or 30 years. It was a huge trading center that connected the coast of Peru, the highlands of Peru, and even the Amazon jungle 4,500 years ago.
Aside from featuring the remains of many impressive ancient structures, Caral appears to have been designed very much like a modern metropolis, with specific districts dedicated to various trades, along with dwellings for as many as 3,000 inhabitants.
At Caral, we've got this incredible urban planning. It has indications of the use of science. Definitely engineering, definitely mathematics when we start looking at the planning, the structure of these particular sites.
It's a huge complex. They're discovering more and more of it. So as you drive off the highway towards Caral, there are ruins on the left side and the right side going on for miles. So it was a very major center. Probably the most incredible thing is the central pyramid. It's quite massive and the excavations are ongoing.
Standing some 90 feet tall, the Great Pyramid of Caral occupies an area of 5 acres, or nearly 4 football fields. A 30-foot wide staircase rises from a sunken circular plaza at the base of the pyramid, passing over 3 terraced levels, until it reaches the top of a platform that features the remains of a large atrium and some kind of structure designed for continuous burning. But just what was its purpose?
And it's quite tall, and it's thought that the ceremonial aspect of the site was carried out from the top of this particular pyramid. And the chief priest or shaman could actually see over the whole domain of Caral and actually almost see to the coast on a clear day. And so it could have been used for astronomical observations.
Recently unearthed archaeological evidence suggests that during the same period, approximately 4,600 years ago, while ziggurats were being built in Mesopotamia, as well as the step pyramids in Egypt, incredibly similar structures were being constructed in Caral. Was this by pure coincidence? Ancient astronaut theorists believe the evidence suggests they could be profoundly connected.
It's almost as if there was some kind of syzygy going on between Egypt and the Caral civilization of northern Peru at exactly the same time. These monuments, quite clearly, are meant to connect us with otherworldly environments. They were both constructed around 2600 BC. I find that very intriguing indeed.
Cahuachi, Peru. 2,000 years ago, this ancient settlement served as the religious and cultural capital of the Nazca people. But sometime around 500 AD, the Nazca mysteriously disappeared, leaving Cahuachi to fall into disarray. 1,400 years later, in 1910, anthropologist Ala Sherlichka came to Cahuachi to study the ancient Nazca civilization. During a dig, he unearthed some of the most surprising and shocking artifacts he had ever seen. They were skulls with enormous, elongated craniums. Where did they come from? How did they get there? And were they human?
In Peru, we find these weird, elongated skulls. And they're bizarre looking. I mean, and these people look like aliens.
One may say, okay, aliens, but another aspect that we have to consider is that skull and cranial deformation forming elongated heads is a practice that's known throughout much of the ancient world.
In 1870, the process of skull deformation was well chronicled by a German botanist and explorer named George Schweinfurth. While exploring the African Congo, he came in contact with a tribe called the Mongbitu. They routinely performed a ritual of cranial binding that allowed them to physically alter the shape of human skulls.
They took infants' skulls and compressed them and bound them, and they forced the cranium out and elongated, and in many cases they doubled the size.
And a big question is, why was this being done? It may have been a way to distinguish the elite, perhaps, from the everyday people, may have been a social stratification type of issue. Something that also appeals to me is that may have been a way to express physically and maybe try to achieve physically greater levels of consciousness or higher levels of mental ability.
In my opinion, they did this in order to mimic the gods. And those gods were physical beings, because if they were just a figment of our ancestors' imagination, I don't think that's a compelling enough reason to expose your children to such a ritual to achieve that type of look. And in my opinion, these people were misinterpreted flesh and blood space travelers.
Some people have suggested aliens had elongated skulls, and apparently ancient peoples are mimicking those skulls. The old saying is that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery.
Although there have been many images that attempt to depict what aliens might actually look like, one in particular has come to dominate the public perception. It too features an elongated cranium and is associated with an extraterrestrial race that many refer to as the Greys.
In terms of entities, one very common description are the so-called Greys. 3.5, 4 feet tall, essentially humanoid, but very spindly with disproportionately large heads and huge black almond-shaped eyes.
But would someone in a primitive society really want to replicate this look and deform their skull? Some archaeologists have a different perspective. They point to artistic self-expression as an explanation of these customs.
There are all kinds of people that either worship the body or use the body as art, be it a tattoo or a piercing of some sort, or tribes that put things in their ears or in their lips to try to grow parts of their body. Some societies we know practiced binding parts of the body, feet or heads, and try to make certain shapes. And this was done for whatever reason. We know today that this isn't usually the most healthy thing to do, but it doesn't mean people don't do it. The people are always trying to change their body to make it look a certain way.
While exploring a burial site near Caral in 2003, archaeologist Alvaro Ruiz made a remarkable discovery.
One of the artifacts that is uncovered and recovered in Caral Supe is this gourd fragment. And on this gourd fragment is an image of this, what has come to be called a staff god. So it's this little guy, and he's standing, holding what appears to be a staff in each of his hands.
Incredibly, radiocarbon dating of the gourd fragment revealed that it is roughly 4,300 years old. The artifact's extraordinary age suggests the deity drawn on it was worshipped by the people of Caral. But even more astonishing to archaeologists is the fact that this so-called staff god bears a striking similarity to a figure worshipped by the Inca some 3,000 years later.
The staff god was a form of Viracocha. And this is exactly the same figure that's seen again and again in pre-Columbian art at places like Tiwanaku on the Gateway of the Sun, one of the most important structures that existed in South America there. You have exactly the same figure.
The real name of Viracocha is Contexe Viracocha Pachayachache, which means the one who knows how to organize the time and space. And he was teaching all the knowledge of civilization, how to domesticate animals, how to create tools, how to heal themselves, how to build houses and everything.
Viracocha was the primary deity of the Andes, going back many thousands of years. He was thought to be the founder of all the ancient sites we see in Peru and Bolivia today, including Tiwanaku, Cusco, Sacsayhuaman, Machu Picchu, and many others. And he formed them and built them along this alignment called the Path of Viracocha, which stretches southeast to northwest across the whole country.
So we see basically everything that becomes civilization, that become the Inca, we see in Caral Supe.